Good morning to everyone. So we've had two amazing presentations, where the funds are going in terms of donor, and then we've had amazing results in terms of the gender violence in Samoa. And now I will talk to you about the actual implementation that we're doing with gender mainstreaming in our programming. Specifically on my presentation, I will be looking at how digital financial services are empowering and building the resilience of women and the socially excluded against climate change. And my focus on digital services will be specifically on financial digital services. So just to provide you with let me go back. I am from the Pacific Insurance and Climate Adaptation Program. This is a program that's been implemented by the United Nations Capital Development Fund as the lead agency. We also have administrative support from the more familiar UNDP, and we receive technical support from our UN university based in Bonn. Our program receives funding from Australia and New Zealand, and I see a trend with our first presenter, but we also receive a specific funding from India UN Development Partnership Fund and the government of Luxembourg for Fiji specific projects. Just to provide you with an overview of my presentation, when we're talking about gender, I will be highlighting some of the development challenges and why we focus on gender in particular, why women's digital financial services or financial inclusion matter in the Pacific, and our approach as a program and UNCDF in terms of mainstreaming gender into our overall programming with tangible solutions. And I will end my presentation with some of the testimonies of the uptake that we're seeing in the community. So it's not new information that natural hazards frequenting the Pacific with increased intensity. And I can say that in the Pacific, we are all resilient people. But when we see the frequency and intensity of these events increasing, it wears out that traditional resilience. And so we have to come up with innovative solutions and how we can continue to empower, particularly our vulnerable communities, to build their own self-resilience. And we know that with this frequency of natural hazards, women and socially excluded are disproportionately affected. They're already facing higher risk, and they are also burdened further by the climate events. And we know that in the Pacific, there is also the deep-rooted gender equality, but these gender issues are not unique. It's also following through to our socially excluded groups, the low-income groups, those in the rural and maritime. So how can we ensure that we are building resilience of these vulnerable groups? We also see that women are also further challenged by their lack of access to resources, financial for that matter. So that's where our program comes in. Why do women's financial inclusion matter? As I had mentioned, when we see that women are included in the overall programming, in the overall decision-making, ensuring that they have access to financial services, it empowers them to make their own financial decisions. When they're included in the financial services and that they have equal access to these opportunities, they are able to build their own self-resilience. They are an untapped market, women, vulnerable groups. So we need to push the private sector or nudge them to provide services to these segments. And when that happens, we are not only contributing to the achievement of the sustainable development groups, but we are also reducing poverty. We are giving them the autonomy to make their own decision, to use their own finances, and overall building their self-resilience. So as a program, our overall objective is to improve the financial preparedness of Pacific Islanders towards climate change and natural hazards. We work towards a market-based solution. We believe in user pay principle, and just to stress, We do not offer financial services, but we help build the ecosystem and make sure that we have a strong foundation for sustainable financial services being offered in each of the Pacific markets. We started our work here in Fiji, in Fiji and Vanuatu and Tonga in 2021 and 2022. And from this year onwards, we're looking at other Pacific countries, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, Kiribati, Timor-Leste, and RMI. So this is how our overall program works. We build local capacities. We work with government agencies in the Pacific. So in Fiji, we work closely with the Ministry of Finance, with the Reserve Bank of Fiji. We also work with other central banks in the region, being our anchor partners. And given that our solution that we are trying to develop with the private sector is a financial solution, a climate and disaster risk financial instrument, particularly parametric insurance, we work with local insurance providers. And given that financial services providers are under the ambit of various central banks, we also work with central banks to ensure that whatever we're offering in the market is within the regulatory framework. We also develop, help build capacity for the private sector in terms of the local insurance companies. As we know, in the Pacific, the insurance uptake is relatively low, and these are mostly conventional type of financial services, which are often taken up by high income groups. And so vulnerable, low income MSMEs and women are often excluded from traditional type of financial services. So we help to develop local capacities, the private sector in particular, to ensure that they are offering this kind of services to market segments that they perhaps would have never targeted. And when we talk about insurance and climate change, a lot of the reinsurance companies are not willing to tap into that sector. And so what we do is that we connect the local insurance companies with global reinsurance who have a larger pot and are able to offer this kind of services to the Pacific. We also connect our local insurance companies with risk modelers. As I mentioned, climate change is relatively new in the Pacific when we talk about financial services and risk modeling. And so there's limited capacity within the current private sector to offer this type of innovative solutions. So we connect them to global risk modelers to help them build their internal capacity. So we've seen over time that with parametric insurance, now the insurance companies are trying to bundle that with traditional type of services that they have and are offering this in the market. But then we have our data partner. So we work with local Met officers for verifiable data, because when we talk about climate change, we need data on wind speed, on rainfall. How are we going to verify the data and making sure that this information is acceptable by users, but at the same time, trustworthy. And we also have aggregator partners, because the solution that we're trying to develop with the private sector has to be affordable. It has to be convenient. So how can we pull a larger group and ensure that they are able to access these services? So we work with pharma agencies, with cooperatives, and ensure that the services are easily accessible and available to them. We know that with cooperatives and pharma agencies, they already have members that they have established a financial and a non-financial relationship with. So there's trust within that circle. And so they're able to go out into the communities. Not only do they inform them, do they create awareness around solutions that are available to them so that they are able to build their own resilience, but also, if they're interested, their members are then onboarded through the agri agencies. We also understand that whilst we try to develop a market-based solution, there will always be a segment in the community that may not be able to afford this type of services. So we work with government agencies such as the Department of Social Welfare in Fiji, so that those that are under social welfare recipients are able to access these solutions, and that government are transferring that risk to the private sector. We also have under our One UN banner, a lot of agencies that look at women's disaster resilience and social protection, such as WFP, UN Women. So how can we bring these agencies together, mobilize resources to effectively reach scale? And we also work with digital payment providers as a distribution channel. In Fiji, we know that the uptake of mobile financial services is relatively high. We're looking at around 70 to 80% of the adult population having actively been using mobile wallets. So we leverage off that digital platform. We know that government have also been using these digital services to reach out to communities following a disaster. And we know that it's often the mobile network that normally the first to be restored following a disaster. So how can we ensure that if there's a trigger event, these end users are able to access that fund relatively quickly? Not only do we try to look at the overall solution, but how can we work with fintech firms? So throughout the overall process, we worked with a fintech firm to develop our iOnboard platform, a digital iOnboard platform that allows for onboarding of customers into this insurance solution. So this platform is also linked to the private sector, the insurance companies' core systems, so that customers are able to be onboarded remotely with lower eKYC requirements. They do not have to travel to main branches to be subscribed to this parametric product. And we also work with, as I had mentioned, digital payment channels to ensure that they're able to pay their premium, but as well as if there's a trigger event, receive payments directly into their mobile wallets. And it also gives women the autonomy to use, to have that decision to use the funds that they receive, because these funds goes directly into their account. Throughout our program, we also launched a gender equality and social inclusion strategy. And this is for us to ensure that all our programming consider gender and socially excluded, and that no one is left behind in the digital era. So these are the products that we worked with insurance companies, with the general public to develop. These are not solutions that are parachuted into each of the countries. These solutions are developed based on demand studies, on supply side diagnostic studies, on discussions that we had with the insurance companies, with regulators, but as well as risk modelers looking at 43 years of historical data. So in Fiji, this is the product that's available in Fiji. The products were launched in 2021. And during the pilot phase, we had an uptake of around 1,388. And unfortunately, fortunately for the people of Fiji, there wasn't a trigger event, but then we weren't able to fully test the capacity of this solution. So following the pilot phase, we went back to end users, we went back to, we did our various assessments, and enhancements were made to the initial product. And so we added rainfall cover, because we know that flooding in Fiji is quite common. And so this year we saw a total uptake in Fiji of 4,147, including the pilot that's currently underway in Tonga and Vanuatu. We have a total of 4,799, of which 47% are women. And we also have a significant number coming through from persons with disability. We also have a lower tiered product with the Department of Social Welfare with the lower sum insured of $400. Note that these products are offered by the insurance companies. Multiple payouts are allowable, and the cost is 10% of each of the total cover. So in Vanuatu, you would remember earlier this year, in March, there were twin cyclones. We had a total uptake at the time of the cyclone of 122. We tried to keep the pilot phase to a smaller sample because we are still testing it in the market. So out of the 122, around more than 80% received a payout because of the twin cyclones, Kevin and Judy. And the payouts in total amounted to around 2.8 million baht. And these funds went directly into the policyholders. In Fiji, there were 2 trigger events based on the revised product. Earlier this year, we had excessive rainfall, particularly in the Western Division. One in January and again in February. As you can see, the total payout in total came to around 200,000 Fijian dollars. And we had significant numbers of beneficiaries who are women as well as persons living with disability. And again, around 87% in the first payout, 73% in the second payout went directly into individual mobile wallets, and the remainder went to the bank account. So all the payments goes through digital platforms. Following the payout, we went back to the communities and we wanted to see what's the feedback like based on those that received the payout. So I'll show you a brief video on testimonies from the ground.
Smallholder farmers in the Western Division. Smallholder farmers in the Western Division who signed up for the Climate Care Parametric Microinsurance Policy received their payout following the recent rainy weather. The beneficiaries believe that while the recent adverse weather conditions is something that they cannot control, investing in an insurance policy was a step in the right direction.
In this area, Naviango area is low-lying area, flooding area, and we have to, many times the flood comes here, damages our cane here.
The river, the water from the river and water from the hits and damages all the crops and vegetables. It's not only my farm, but there's so many farmers out there in our community.
So it's really hit. So it's already now receiving that money during the rainy season. No, it was just a big help.
Actually, I got some money. I
received 250. From that money, I want to tell you something. I uplift my business. My business is Alice Rally enterprise. I do so many business so that I can survive. Likewise, those money, I break it down. I deposit $50 in my business account, $50 for my food for that month, and you can see so many buckets are here, from here to there, and I sold so many flowers. And I know that I can survive. Staying here, I can survive with this flower. I'm so glad that I can manage to move on.
Yes, I signed up and paid the premium.
I would be very much looking forward to that, renewing every year, and I advise all farmers and all these small businesses out there to take interest in this initiative. Yes.
So for women, we see that they are being empowered and that this small injections helps with their business continuity. They're not relying on government or other family members to get back on their feet. It may be small injections, but it helps them to get back on their feet while waiting on other support systems to come in. these are some of the other feedback that we have received. And what we have seen throughout the implementation phase of our program is that these institutions, the private sector, government agencies, the regulatory bodies, we are still providing the support that is needed to ensure that as we pull away, these services continue to be offered in the market and done so in a sustainable way. Thank you.